This is Thomas, and today we're going to be talking about how to be more firm and assertive. But before we get into that, a couple of housekeeping items. First and foremost, please like and subscribe to this video if you like this content. If you love this content, I just released a 100-page book called The Refined Leadership Blueprint. In this blueprint, I talk about everything about how to achieve peak performance, how to be an effective communicator, and how to be an advanced leader. So if you love this content, you want to read 100 pages on it, go check it out. The link is in my bio. And I'm still on tour right now, so if you want to apply for one of those dates, this may be the last time for you to actually go and apply for that this year. So go check that out at your earliest convenience. Now, back to the main topic, how to be more firm and assertive. Before we get into this topic, we should be asking a question about why. Because that's why we're here in the first place. You type something up, and then this was the result that you came with, was how to be more firm and assertive. Something happened. I want you to actually write that down. And if you're on YouTube, you're probably not writing any of this down, which is totally fine. But I want you to just keep in the back of your head exactly why you showed up to this video in the first place. Why is it that you're trying to be more firm and assertive? Because when we think about these topics, we want to have an actual example that we go and apply some of these strategies to. Because if we're just willy-nilly going to be more firm and assertive, that's called being an asshole. Some people that don't know how to turn that stuff off, they just go and they're little tyrants or petty tyrants, and they go rule the world. And if you want to be that person, you're more than likely to go do so. But if you're anything like me, you want to be like what I like to teach, and that is to be a refined leader. And to be a refined leader, you might have a control over this. So I'm going to teach you today how to be more firm and assertive in a refined manner. So you have your topic, the thing in the back of your head about why you came to this video in the first place. You're likely going to be more firm and assertive anywhere where someone's wants and desires are up for negotiation. That could be in your professional life, which is probably most likely, whether you're a team leader and you're looking to get people bought into your vision, where you're looking to get a specific action item actually accomplished, achieved, whatever strategy you're looking to actually move forward, you actually need people's buy-in to go do so. From a team member standpoint, whether you have a manager that's consistently calling you in on the weekends or asking you to do a type of work where you're absolutely stretched to go do, how to be able to push back against that and be more firm in that regard. It could be in your personal life in terms of your relationships, how you want to establish your relationships and how you relate to people around you and how others relate to you. And most importantly, this is most likely the easiest way to get started with being more firm and assertive is with yourself. How do you take things in which you know you're supposed to be doing with yourself and you know that you are not doing it? You have to start with yourself before you can do this with anyone else, especially if you want to do this with extremely large organizations. So you want to be thinking about why you want to be more firm and assertive. Go back to your example that you were thinking of about why you showed up to this video in the first place. Why do you want to be more firm and assertive? And the answer for you is most likely the case that it's the answer for everyone else. And that is the world has a way of pushing up against you. And if you don't push back, then you're just going to be eaten up by the wants and desires of the people and just the market that is and all the forces that be around you. They're trying to get you to do things that maybe are in your best interest to do, maybe they're not in your best interest to do, but you find yourself doing them anyways. What you're really trying to do is not get taken advantage of. And it's at no fault to the world to try to go take advantage of it. It has its own goals on its own. You have your own goals, and when those clash up against each other, what happens to win is the one that happens to be more firm and assertive about it, and that's why I want to teach you how to go do today. So to tackle this problem, I want to get really deep down into this, and whenever I discuss problems like this in a refined manner, like a refined leader, is what I like to do is get down to the core elements of how we can go tackle this problem of why it is the case that you're not firm and assertive enough in your situations. I want to tackle this at 3 levels: on a thought level, on an emotional level, and on a behavioral level. If you go check out my blueprint, you're going to discover that that's how I discuss most of my problems. I want to go down to the deep core fundamental level that is made up of the stuff that your body is made up on its own, and to start working from that place, not from a place that is theoretical, not from a place that is as if you were a computer of sorts, but rather from the perspective of you being a human being with your unique wants, desires, your weaknesses, your strengths, everything that adds up that has led you to be who you are as a person today. So we're going to start from the fundamentals. So starting out with the thoughts, we're really playing around with emotions of anger and seeking. Anger is not necessarily a bad thing. Anger is actually very useful. Become friends with your anger, otherwise it will start controlling your life. I think back to one of my favorite movies, Anger Management, with Jack Nicholson and Adam Sandler, where Jack Nicholson's character, the therapist, talks to Adam Sandler's character and says, you know, there are two types of angry people. There's explosive and implosive. The explosive person is someone that comes to the gas station every single day, you know, complaining how, you know, the machine's not accepting his coupons or something along the lines. He's consistently slamming his fist against the table, but he's expressing that anger in a very explosive way. And then there's the implosive anger, which is the cashier who sits quietly day after day, taking all the abuse and all the nonsense until he gets up and shoots everyone in the store. And you know, you don't want your anger to go take control of you that way, because if you just want to go and stifle it, you know, what's going to happen is it's going to bubble up, it's going to accumulate, and then you're going to find yourself in situations where you have to demonstrate some level of pushback and assertiveness, and you're going to discover that it comes out too strongly and it's at a point where you actually cannot control it. So it's actually really important that you actually go and express yourself consistently to actually go and assert what you're looking for and what you want. It's really important you do that, otherwise it bubbles up and accumulates. But anger is one of those emotions we're playing around with, and seeking the desire to go get things in the world is another aspect of this, because there's no reason to be assertive unless you're trying to go and accomplish something, whether it is you're trying to go accomplish a task, or you're looking to protect some part of your self-esteem or your ego, or you're just trying to look after some mission that you're trying to accomplish. Seeking that core emotion is at the core of all that. Now, I just said, hey, let's start with the thought aspect of things, but we want our thoughts to actually lean into some of these emotions. So we want to start cultivating those emotions with the thoughts that we have. I wish I could just turn my emotions on and up, but it's not necessarily the case. You know, emotions are a whole lot like a chemistry experiment. You know, you put two chemicals together, it doesn't matter what you're thinking about. They're going to bubble up and they're going to react in the way that, you know, chemicals tend to go and react. So we want to start telling ourselves different stories so that we can cultivate some of these emotions in a very instructive and a very careful and measured manner. So here is at the core of all the stories you're going to tell yourself to start cultivating that emotion, that feeling of being more firm and assertive. And that is simply this: you will get what you decide you deserve. Okay, a lot of people think that you get what you deserve, and that may be the case, but how do you know what you deserve? It's kind of a weird logical formula. You just decide in your head and you say, hey, I think I deserve this, or I think I don't deserve this. And we set such arbitrary criteria, but the criteria really is up to you, whether it's you need to make a certain amount of money, or you need to have a certain title or position, or you need to have a certain number of social status brownie points in that situation, whatever it is. We just arbitrarily decide what we deserve in certain situations. What I encourage you to do is this: start deciding that you deserve certain things. Start deciding that you will only put up with so much. And you can set that threshold anywhere you want. You could say that you deserve to be treated like a king. And the moment you start doing that, you're gonna start being bothered by people not treating you like a king. Now, understand, when you set such a high threshold like that, you're gonna have to pay the price for it. You're gonna have to pay consequences, social consequences, which you may or may not be willing to go pay. So maybe we want to back off of that and say, you know what, I'm not willing to pay that price. Maybe I'm willing to pay the price of, you know, I want to be respected as a competent member of this team, or I want to be respected as a competent partner, or I want to be respected as like a competent person that's making a transaction right now. Whatever it is, decide what you deserve, okay? Take a moment and think about that situation I told you about, why you came to this video in the first place, and simply decide that you deserve to be treated in a certain way, or that you get to behave in a certain way, or that you get to conduct yourself in a certain way, or that you get certain results. Make that decision right now, and you will have known you've made that decision effectively when you start to get bothered by it just a little bit. You want yourself to be a little bit bothered by it, and when you feel that bother start bubbling up a little bit, what we're doing is we're taking advantage of that anger component. You know, again, anger is not a bad thing. Anger plus love is equal to passion, okay? We love passionate people, and it's quite honestly the truth that very, very passionate people happen to be very angry people. The advantage that we have being on this video together is that we can go and control it. We can put a cap on it, and we can point it very specifically in specific ways such that we could use it to our advantage and not let it go and destroy us. So let it go and bother you just a little bit, okay? Start thinking about other ways of telling yourself the story. Start asking, why does everyone else get to have their voice heard, but not you? Start thinking about the consequences you have to face by being left behind. What sort of things did you want to build on this planet, but you don't get to build now because you didn't make your voice heard? think a little bit about all the people that are laughing at you, the people that are not even laughing at you, that just forgot about you, that literally just brush you to the side because you didn't raise your voice or you didn't raise your actions or the importance of something high enough to be able to make your claim on exactly what's going on. Again, whether that is in the personal situation with your own relationships, whether that is in the professional region with your own business relationships, or if that's the relationship you have between you and yourself. You said you were going to do something, but you didn't feel like it. You have to be assertive with that person. If you're not going to be assertive with the emotional parts of yourself, then guess what? You're just going to be guided back and forth by your emotions in life. And that's just what your life is going to be. So really let those emotions bubble up. And then ask yourself, as those emotions are bubbling up, what you're really willing to pay in order to get what you're looking for. Because that's why we're being firm and assertive in the first place, is because we're teaching the world around us what we deserve, or we're teaching ourselves what we are entitled to, or we're teaching others how they're supposed to go conduct themselves around you. That's the only reason that we're doing this in the first place. Again, go back to the reason you came to this video in the first place. Why do you feel deserving of having to go do so? What are you losing out by not getting that thing that you're looking for? What are the costs you have to face? How are you losing out on your life mission by missing out on these things? And then finally think about, what costs do you want to pay? What costs are you willing to pay in order to make your voice heard and to actually step in and make something happen? If you're not going to be assertive, it's like, not being assertive as a leader is a whole lot like walking into battle as a warrior without your sword and shield. All right, you're basically hopeless, you're feckless, you have nothing to go protect yourself with, and you have nothing to go fight with. That's what your firmness and your assertiveness does. Now, lastly, on the thought level, be prepared to negotiate, okay? Be prepared for there to be some friction. A lot of people that are very agreeable will have a tough time with doing this, because what they want more than anything else is that for there just to be some peace, okay? I'd recommend, from a thought perspective, start expecting there to be a little bit of friction. A little bit of friction doesn't mean conflict. A little bit of friction simply means that you have something that you want as coming up against something that someone else wants, and sometimes they may rub against each other the wrong way. So be prepared for there to be a little bit of friction. That doesn't mean that there's conflict, just means that there's a little friction, and that in order to be assertive, you gotta have some teeth, and you gotta be prepared to bite a little bit. And if you're not, then you can't even call yourself a good person if you can't protect the things you care most about. In addition to some friction, be prepared to negotiate values. The negotiation doesn't start until there is an initial pushback by someone. You have someone that says, no, we're gonna do things this way, but you say, no, we're gonna do things this way. And the moment you say that, and the moment you bring that to reality and it pushes back against something that someone else wants, well, now we've entered into a negotiation. And really, it's important to see it like that. It's not a fight. I think a lot of people, they're not equipped to negotiate effectively, and so they're more inclined to believe that they're going to get into a conflict of some sort, and they'll just avoid it entirely. Don't do that. You're going to start bottling all this stuff up, and it's not useful for your self-esteem. It's not useful for when you have to go stand up for yourself. You don't want it to come out full force. You want it to be controlled and precise how you actually go and apply it. So you want to be prepared to negotiate for values. Maybe you don't get everything that you want, but you get to get some of the things in exchange for you complying with the alternative party, which is asking you to do something else. So that's on the thought side of things. Now, if you did the thought side of things right, you'll start feeling some emotions bubbling up, which is actually going to be the driver, the fuel that propels you to do exactly what you're trying to do, which is, again, to be more firm and assertive. Remember those two emotions, anger and seeking. We don't talk about seeking enough as an emotion, but if you had to think about that compulsion to get up and go do something, if you're thirsty, to get up and get a glass of water, or if you're hungry, to get up and have a bite to eat, or if you need to use the restroom, to get up and use the restroom, or if you had to go socialize, to get up and go socialize, or if you had to go get some money or go get some whatever, you have to get up and go do those things, or to find your partner, or to find allies for your team. Whatever it is, you have to get up and go do those things. The emotion that comes along with that sort of drive, that impulsive drive to get up and go do something, belongs to the seeking circuit. So we're cultivating those two emotions, seeking and anger. So you want to get really clear about what the vision is behind what you're trying to go do. If you're really smart and you're really wise, you want to figure out how the reason you're being assertive for connects to that larger mission. Perhaps you really, really want people to understand your way of thinking, but if it doesn't really connect to what you're trying to do on a larger scale, sometimes it's okay to lose the battle so you can go win the war. you can go collect a bunch of losses and you can go turn those into wins later on. We could talk about this personally, but there is a way of going to go do that. Sometimes it actually means more to lose the temporary battle so you can win some of the larger battles. But if it actually adds into that larger vision, sometimes these things seem really, really small. Like, it's just a couple of dollars. I don't need to negotiate over it. Or it's just, just an inconvenience. Like, I could get over it. For those things that actually do connect to that larger mission, even though it's something you could easily brush off, you definitely want to lean into those. You definitely want to make sure that, if a waiter is putting an extra 3% restaurant surcharge on your bill, that you ask them to go take it off. That if a driver is going to pick you up and drop you off at certain places, that they get specifically to where you're looking for. Another funny one, which I see a lot because I live in a condo, is in the elevator. People get in the elevator and they say, they kind of mumble a little bit about like, hey, how's it going? Or how's your day? Or what for are you looking for? I step back and I say, hey, how are you today? Yeah, nice to meet you. My name's Thomas. I want to let them know when I'm talking to them, I mean to talk to them. I'm not accidentally doing so because I'm asserting myself upon myself to actually go socialize, but then also go interact with the person next to me and let them know that I'm actually doing that. Yes, please click that floor. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. People actually care a lot more when you do that. They actually appreciate it a lot more when you're more intentional with some of these things. But back to the matter of hand, you want to get clear not only on what you're trying to accomplish by your assertiveness, because firmness and assertiveness is always a means to an end, but more so how that end connects to the larger mission. And you really want to lean to it if it really connects to that larger mission. And maybe you can negotiate around it if you discover that it's not something that you really, really need to go step into. And then the anger part, okay? Anger gets a bad rap because people associate it with a person that just destroys things. Well, an uninformed anger will go and do that, but you want to have a little bit of it so you can establish that assertiveness. The reason why the body and humans and any creature really needs that is because they've encountered an obstacle and they're trying to get beyond that obstacle, but for some reason, that obstacle won't get out of the way, and they have to do something. They have to turn on their energy a little bit in order to go past it. We have other emotions that have to deal with obstacles as well. If it's an obstacle that, we have to deal with, but we're not confident in ourselves with handling, that's called anxiety. Our body just sort of turns on all of its circuits and we get all shaky. And through that shakiness, we think that we're just being nervous, but really our body's just gearing itself up for everything all at the same time, which is really just a reflection of incompetence. You're going in to do something, but you're not fully competent of doing it. And if you decide that the obstacle is truly insurmountable and it might be a real threat to you, that's where fear turns on. Fear turns on when you have to go run away from it. Anxiety turns on when you're going towards it. Anger turns on when you can go handle the situation, but for some reason the obstacle has presented itself as being frustrating and insurmountable. You have an emotional response to actually go deal with it. So when it comes to anger, you want to keep it controlled and tempered. You don't want it to get out of hand. If it gets out of hand, that's where we start getting into real management problems, which, they have therapies for stuff like that. But you really want to go and manage it effectively so that you could use it to your advantage and it not going to go and use you. So the key thing with seeking, keep a clear vision on that end outcome so you can get your emotional circuitry, which is designed to achieve that outcome, in vision. And for the anger side, you want to keep it controlled. You want it to go too far or too little. Probably the right amount is just about 5 to 10% beyond what you think firm and assertive is supposed to be. That way it perks people's ears up and they actually start to listen to you. And that is how you get your thoughts and what emotions you should be gearing up through those thoughts, and the emotions you should be cultivating, in a very instructive way that's appropriate for the situation at hand. Okay, now finally at the fun stuff. Now that we did the deep work, now we can talk about some actual pragmatic things to do on the behavioral level. We covered thoughts to get to emotions. Now we have all this potential bubbling up and ready to explode. Now we get to go do something with it, okay? Ask yourself, how assertive do you really need to be for this particular situation? I think a lot of people avoid being firm and assertive because they think it's supposed to be this huge fanfare, something they have to do that they really don't need to do. Sometimes it's just something really subtle that they need to do. In fact, I would encourage you, with whatever reason you came to this video for, you think of the easiest way for you to immediately start being more firm and assertive. It might be in the situation you thought of, or it might be in a more subtle situation. You know, you say you want to be more firm and assertive with your manager. Well, maybe we could be more specific and say, can we be more firm and assertive in situations where you're being asked to do far too much? You know, perhaps you need to step back and say, hey, I understand that you're doing this, and I'm entirely with you, but here are the limitations that I have. I could do this, this, or this. You know, which one do you want me to prioritize first? Okay, that's an easy way to actually demonstrate that assertiveness, is I'm actually giving options. I'm acknowledging what the person's saying, but then I'm giving options instead. So when it comes to have assertiveness, from the actual feeling standpoint and actually expressing that feeling through your behaviors, think about how assertive do you really need to be. You probably don't need to break a glass bottle, you know, on a railing somewhere and be ready for a bar fight. Probably you don't need to do that. Probably that's too much. Probably you just need to find out how assertive you really need to be, and then go about 5 to 10% beyond that. 10% is really pushing it. You know, that's, you know, borderline threatening. I would say 5 to 10% is pretty close in terms of how assertive you need to be. Think about what that's supposed to look like, and then use all that thought and emotion you've been cultivating to go and express that assertiveness at about 5 to 10% above the threshold you would otherwise expect for that situation. So now that we know how to express it, you know, what level that we want to go hit this at, another thing that really helps with being assertive is competence. Okay, I mentioned three total emotions in this video: fear, anxiety, and anger. Okay, fear is what happens when you're being faced with an obstacle and it's actually a threat to you. You want to run away. Complete incompetence. Okay, that's no fault to you sometimes. Sometimes something is truly insurmountable. If it's me versus a grizzly bear, I'm getting the hell out of there. Okay, I don't care how much I prepared for it. I'm getting the hell out. So even if I have some weapons, you know, probably it's smart that I'm terrified in situations like that. And then there's anxiety. Anxiety means that I'm going into the situation, but I'm not sure if I can handle it or not. And that lack of certainty results in sort of the body turning all the emotions and getting all shaky for it, okay? And then there's the competence side of things, which is you're just gonna go handle the situation, and you're going to adjust how much anger needs to be turned on. You know, I say anger so much, but really, to get down to the core of things, is like you're just expressing an assertiveness. You know, that's what assertiveness is. It's like anger, you know, with a dial turned down to 5 or 10%. You know, if you could turn it down to that 5 or 10%, what you have is what a lot of people would call assertiveness, and it's actually very useful to go do that. So if you have that, usually that turns on when you feel competent enough to go handle something. You could trust yourself to actually go handle that situation. And what that really means is that you could trust no matter what the outcome is going to be. The outcome in the worst case scenario, you could see that, you know, even if this worst case scenario happened, I would still be okay. I could still handle myself, and I could still go on with my life. Okay? This invites you to be more assertive because you have competence with relation to the outcome. How do you get more competent? You know, you get it through practice. And how do you get more practice? You get it by reducing the threshold of what it takes to be assertive. So find the thing that is easiest for you to be assertive in. You know, I set a couple examples which are super easy. In the elevator, you know, introduce yourself very simply, like, hey, how's it going? Yeah, I'm on floor 15 or whatever it is. How's your day going today? That's a lovely dog, or whatever. I'm being very, you know, obvious and very literal about the conversation, but speak in a way like you mean to go talk to that person. And you know what? That person doesn't want to talk to you, then you're okay with that too? Oh, okay, cool, no problem. Just want to say hi. Hey, have yourself a good day now. Okay, that's one thing. Or, you know, again, if you find yourself with a restaurant bill and they're putting these ridiculous 3% charges on it, it's like, I'm sure it helps the restaurant in some way, but it's like a charge that you didn't pay for, you know? It's like they're charging you money for nothing. They say, hey, could you take this off of my bill, please? You know, here's another one. You know, those iPads, they turn around that says, hey, do you want to tip 18, 20, or 25% or whatever, or something ridiculous? You know, look at it and you decide for yourself, how much is that person deserving of your tip? Do you actually want to tip them an extra 10, 20, 30%? Or is the number 50 cents? Or is the number $2? Or is the number 0? If you truly believe it's 0, tap that number, turn it around, and look that person in the eye and wait for whatever they're going to do. No one has made it awkward at all. But that's the easiest way to go and express yourself and be assertive with it. I mean, hell, there's a whole situation that's happening, you know, outside the police station, you know, close to my condo right now. the assertive that's required to go navigate a crowd over there that's happening, you do need to stand up for yourself. Otherwise, what's happening in the world is going to go come down on you. You have to be able to push back. If you don't push back, then you're no better than a gust of wind, just moving in and out of things. And there's a utility to being formless, but there's a lack of utility of not having an ego or an entity to go express yourself in the way that you see is most appropriate with the world, and be able to maintain your boundaries so that the world doesn't push back and you crumble as a result of it. Okay, so very, very simple things, really, really simple things. Start expressing yourself, and this is very much in the refined leadership methodology and philosophy, and that is to be improving on a moment-to-moment basis. You should be refining yourself on a moment-to-moment basis. If you watch this video right, you should be feeling more firm and assertive simply by listening to this video. If I am delivering this video right, I should be feeling more firm and assertive through this video with everything going on around me. And that's exactly the philosophy that's behind all this. I hope for you to start embracing that philosophy a little bit more, that you can start being more firm and assertive on a moment-to-moment basis. So to achieve that level of competence, find really, really easy things to do and easy ways to express yourself to being more firm and assertive. Really maintain those boundaries, because we all know if you can maintain strong boundaries, that value starts to cultivate on the inside of the boundaries. It doesn't matter if you're a bank, if you're a high-end nightclub, if you're the White House, or if it's a person. The stronger your boundaries are, the more choosy you are about the things that come inside, the more value you'll start cultivating on the inside. And that is why I hope for you today. And better yet, there doesn't even need to be conflict for you to go and assert yourself. Sometimes it means just to find a win-win. I expressed that just a little bit earlier with negotiating, work from your employer. You could say, I agree, this needs to get done. However, I am personally capped on this. I'm stretched completely on these boundaries. Which one of these would you like me to focus on first? If you could go and do that, now you're establishing some boundaries without having to say, no, boss, I'm not doing the work today. If you go do that, that's a one-way ticket to the to getting workers' compensation. Like, you're gonna have to do what your employer tells you to do, or you're gonna have to do what the market is telling you to do in order to stay afloat, whatever role that you're going to go play. But there are ways of pushing back against it, and a great way of pushing back against it is finding those win-win opportunities wherever possible. Look for the win-win opportunities first. What I personally like to do is, if there's a matter at hand that the importance needs to be raised very, very aggressively, I will very assertively put my voice out there and say, this is where we all lose if we don't do this right. We are dropping the ball on this particular matter. We are all losing unless we figure out this specific thing. So I will raise the importance on that, and I'll assert myself for the sake of the team. If it's to everyone's benefit, it's a win-win-win-win-win everywhere. They could see that, like, hey, this is actually a big deal. He's asserting himself. It's a signal to other people that we need to pay attention to this if I go assert myself. If I don't assert myself, then basically everyone just learns that it's not really a big deal. This sometimes costs people's lives. I mean, if you've ever read the book Outliers, I think it was the book Outliers, where they talked about, or it may have been one of the other Malcolm Gladwell books, with regards to the Korean pilots and how they were afraid to assert themselves to the other co-pilots and the other staff with regards to a serious problem that was happening with the aircraft. And the aircraft actually crashed, and it cost everyone's lives simply because they weren't comfortable with being assertive with people around them. So you got to do this, and you got to do this right. Otherwise, other people's lives are literally at stake, sometimes directly, sometimes indirectly. But your assertiveness actually matters a ton to making sure that the world keeps on turning. So those are a couple of my notes for today on being more firm and assertive. Make sure you check out my refined leadership blueprint. Again, the link is down in the description of the video. Make sure you like and subscribe for more content like this. All these videos are made chronologically. You can watch all of these in order. You'll see on my last video, I'm actually talking about in the next video, like how to be more firm and assertive. So I just want to remind you, if you want to watch these from top to bottom, from front to back, you could do so. You can actually watch the evolution I go through personally as I go and teach this content. Which, speaking of, I'm going to be continuing that chronology of these videos. Is that the right word? Chronology? I think so. I'm going to be continuing the chronology of these videos by moving on to how to deal with rejection. A common quote that's been thrown around by Winston Churchill, the great Sir Winston Churchill, old Prime Minister of the UK during the World Wars, said, success is moving from failure to failure without any loss of enthusiasm. And as I understand, when you're going to go cultivate yourself and you're putting yourself out into the world to go develop a skill set, develop a specialization, to be able to get the reps and sets in, you're going to be dealing with a lot of pushback. By being more firm and assertive, the consequence of that is you're going to be getting a lot of pushback as a result of that. So I want to continue on this theme of being more firm and assertive by talking about dealing with rejection. And by dealing with rejection, I want to talk about learning how to lose effectively and be able to find joy in that and be able to go develop yourself with that and be able to see things from the wider perspective. Because I think a lot of people, they avoid short-term discomforts because they can't see the longer-term image. So that's why I want for all of you to continue shattering limitations, transcending boundaries, refining leadership, and I'll see you next week to be talking about how to deal with rejection. Thanks a lot, folks. Hope to see you next week.